Hello. All right. You just barely made it, Ray. Scooted in right there. All right. Well, hello everyone. It's time to begin. I've got good news and bad news depending on your frame of mind. The good news is that I didn't give Chris a heart attack last week when I said I only had 2 more weeks to go when I actually had 3. So the good news is I've got today and next week to finish Lamentations. The bad news is for you, I have today and next week to finish Lamentations if you're tired of this series. So I had my dates mixed up, and I actually had 2 weeks, which is great because we only made it halfway through Lamentations 3, which is an immensely important chapter. We just didn't get to spend all the time that I had wanted to on it last week. So this morning we are going to finish chapter 3, and then next week we'll look at chapter 4 and 5. And I could have moved on to 4 and 5 today, but I wanted to take my time with the rest of chapter 3, and then 4 and 5 has some unique features to it, but largely it sort of mirrors the first 2 chapters in dealing with the pain that this poet is experiencing as a result of the siege, during the siege, and the aftermath that followed. So I mentioned this some this morning, and I just felt like the subject matter demanded to pull from chapter 3 because it's so appropriate to the discussion of dealing with pain and what you do as a result of that which you feel. The poet here in chapter 3, as we mentioned last week, is taking a look at the events of the siege, and he's speaking in two ways that we mentioned last week. One, for his own experience, his own pain, and in doing so, he's representing a larger voice of Israel, whereas in chapters 1 and 2, you have broader perspectives of the voices of Judah that's crying out. It's all of the people here. He speaks in verse 1, I am the man. I am the man who's experiencing all of this. So he's speaking for himself and also for the people, but he also makes a switch here, and he'll begin to speak to the people, to offer them a word as to how to manage their own experiences of this great and terrible loss, and leading their voice and calling out to God to help right some of these wrongs. One of the things that I did want to briefly mention, and it kind of goes along a little with this morning's sermon, is to think about how God works in arranging all of this. How do we square the idea of a God offering free will, and I think a God who doesn't smite us, so to speak, when we do wrong, with the picture that we find here with how he is using Babylon. I think, and we're going to see this here in chapter 3, God works the way he's always worked, in which man has choice, and man's choices lead them down certain paths. We did a little bit of this early on in looking at Jeremiah and this is probably what you would call the most boring class that we did, except for Rob. He likes history. But we tried to look at history and the cascading events and choices that Israel made that brought them to this point. Choices about who they were going to ally themselves with. Choices about what they were going to allow into their kingdom and allow their people to do. which is to get mixed up in pagan rituals and to bring in all these kinds of influences. What happens when you go against what God would have you do and in relying on Him, keeping your way pure, and instead start allying yourself with all of these foreign nations, making pacts and bonds and covenants with people that God warned you to stay away from? Well, it rolled them right into the face of Babylon, creating this power where they try to have all these allies of Egypt and others, made them into the threat that caused Babylon to come down. Did Babylon whisper into the ear of the rulers of Babylon? Did God whisper into their ear and make them do this? I don't think so. I think the choices that Israel made and the way they got further and further away from God, God turns them over. He removes His restraining hand, and the result of their choices is what we read about in Jeremiah and what we read about in Lamentations. It's why what happens, the turn that happens in Lamentations, why it's so important. The remembering who God really is, remembering that God didn't choose this, and remembering that their affliction is as a result of mistakes made. So we'll pick up in chapter 3 with back to 19 and following, this hope remembering. The man is clinging to his people's faith, a reminder of who God has been, the faithfulness of God, the character of God. So I want to read through 19 through 39. To recall my distress and my misery was poison. Whenever I thought of them, I was bowed low. But this do I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. The kindness of the Lord is not ended. His mercies are not spent. They are renewed every morning. Ample is your grace. I say with a full heart, the Lord is my portion, and so I will hope in Him. The Lord is good to those who trust in Him. To the one who seeks Him, it is good to wait patiently till rescue comes from the Lord. It is good for a man when young to bear a yoke. Let him sit alone and be patient when He has laid it upon him. Let him put his mouth to the dust, there may yet be hope. Let him offer his cheek to the smiter. Let him be surfeited with mockery. For the Lord does not reject forever. He first afflicts and pardons, and in his abundant kindness. For He does not willfully bring grief or affliction to man. Crushing under His feet all the prisoners of the earth, to deny a man his rights in the presence of the Most High, to wrong a man in his cause, this the Lord does not choose. Whose decree was ever fulfilled unless the Lord willed it? Is it not at the word of the Most High that good and evil befall? Of what shall a living man complain? Each one of his own sins. And then following in 40, it's as though the last line has prompted a new line of thinking, and so we'll pick back up there in a minute. So I want to just come back to this and first just open it up as I like to do. I know when we've been going through all of Jeremiah in 4 weeks, it's hard to open up to too much comment or discussion, but I wanted to slow down a little bit with Lamentations and open it up. As you read through 19 through 39, as you listen, what are the things that you read that stand out to you as being relatable to you? Or just anything that you would see in there that stands out, question or comment? When everyone speaks at once like this, it's really hard to hear. It's overwhelming in volume. You're like, I didn't know we were supposed to be listening. I just wonder if, as we read through this, if any of what you read is relatable, or if there's anything that stands out to you as worthy of comment. Something you thought of. It's okay if it didn't. Just wanted to pause and give a moment if you had anything you wanted to reflect on. No, first time, no comments. It's okay. It's okay. So this is it's a really powerful statement of faith here in this section. Starts off with bad memory. So lament, which Lamentations is named for its contents, lament in a typical form, and I say typical, it doesn't always follow this pattern, but very often psalms of disorientation or laments typically begin with the state of how it is or used to be, to recall how things were. In psalms of new orientation, the psalmist or lamenter has gone through a season lament. Typically it starts the same way, a remembering of where things were and a moving through how they found their way out, how they climbed their way out, how God assisted in moving them from this state of lament to a new way of seeing things. And you see that just within these few short verses here. It begins with this bad memory of the way things were. I remember when I think about all the things that have happened, when I recall my distress, my misery, it feels like poison. And whenever I thought of them, I was bowed low. Is there anyone that can sympathize with this? I'm getting a call from somewhere in Ohio. Anybody, we think this is real? I'm just going to, I don't know if y'all noticed, but I got a spam call in the middle of the sermon this morning. Did anybody notice that? You did? Okay. Well, it was annoying. I'll start leaving my watch off. What was I talking about? What are we doing? Is this class? Okay, back to it. All right, so can anybody sympathize with what he's talking about? This idea of recalling distress, recalling misery, that feeling like poison, making you sick to your stomach, thinking about these things in life just really bringing you low. Is it just me, or has anybody else ever felt this way? Yeah. 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 Yeah, I think one of the great lies, if you didn't hear what Everett said, is there is some comfort in reading this. You know, we've all felt pain of different kinds. We've all experienced heartbreak or pain of some variety or another. So in one sense, it's comforting to know that we're not alone in that, that other people have felt it and gotten through it, and we will too. Pain is such a liar because it makes us feel alone. It makes us feel, sometimes, depending on what the pain is, it makes us feel shame. And shame just covers it up, and it prevents us from doing what we need to do to move through it. To be able to read things like this, and I think the reason they're included in Scripture is to be reminded that God wants all of it. He wants to hear all of it, and He wants us to know we are not alone in experiencing it, and we are not somehow less because we question and we worry and we fear. We are not less faithful as a result of those things. In fact, I would almost argue the opposite. To bring those things to God shows me that I have faith in the only one who is able to do anything about it. At the end of this section, that's where he gets to. Who else is there to go to, right? So we've all felt this bad memory of things that we have gone through. And when we think about those things, we are brought low. But to remember truth, I call this to mind, and he talks about the kindness, the love of the Lord. He talks about the mercies of God that are new and available to us every day. He talks about God's grace. He talks about our response to that, what we would say. Is there anything he's leaving out in terms of the kinds of pain we might experience, right? God's kindness is not ended. He will be kind to us. If I have done something wrong, his mercy His mercy is available to me every day. His grace is available. He talks about our response. In response to that, we say that God is all I need, and so I hope in Him. Waiting in hope is challenging. We want our pain, our problems to be fixed right now. What the interesting thing about chapter 3 is we have this core of chapter 3, the core of Lamentations is this hope. But what happens right after this declaration of renewed hope? He goes right back to the pain. Just because we believe that God is going to get us through doesn't automatically erase our hurt. And the other lie is thinking that it will, and that somehow I'm defective and broken because I still am hurting and I still feel pain. I can remember who God is and still feel pain at the same time. What changes is how much I dwell on it. I can feel that pain and I can acknowledge it, but I have a new call. I have an upward call to remember the good things that God has done. It doesn't erase it. It doesn't take it away. It's still there. But I am working on remembering who God is and who He wants me to be and what He offers. The Lord is good to those who trust in Him. This is shocking because if you remember the first part of chapter 3, there's all these pictures. The upside-down shepherd who used to use his rod to save, and now it's being used to punish. The one who has just used all these metaphors of God as the animal that carries us off the path, to now saying the Lord is good to those who trust Him. Yeah. 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 I think it's the hardest thing to we want our pain to just to be gone. And sometimes in some cases, depending on what it is, it never goes away. Yeah. It can get less. Wait, say that again. I don't think everybody heard. Pretty good. Oh, I'll take pretty good. I'll take pretty good. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So waiting in hope, to remember that God's goodness is for those who put their trust in Him, who remember Him, who seek Him. He talks about the need to wait patiently. I'm not good at patience. I don't know about you. I'm bad at patience, especially when it comes to hurt, to pain. I want it to be taken away right away. It's good to wait patiently for rescue to come from God, rather than seeking rescue in other means that are not godly. To bear this yoke, it's good to sit, to be patient, to learn how to be patient and wait on God. 31, the bedrock. What is the result? What is the foundation for this change? We have this huge change in remembering who God is, from cursing God to now blessing God. That change demands explanation. And I think 31 through 33 provides the explanation. The character of God, come all the way back to Exodus 34. The Lord doesn't reject forever. In His abundant kindness, He is not willfully bringing grief or affliction to man, crushing under His feet the prisoners of the earth, to deny man his rights in the presence of the Most High, to wrong a man in his cause. It's not what the Lord chooses. God does not choose this. It's not who He is. We mentioned this last week. God is love. God is not anger. He can be angry and He can exhibit His wrath, but it is not who He is. If we experience the wrath of God, if we are faithful and seek Him and wait patiently, God is who He always has been, and we will experience the love of God again. 34 through 39 thinks about the comfort that comes from the mystery of God and His sovereignty. To wrong a man his cause, this the Lord does not choose. And then he asks a couple of questions. Whose decree was ever fulfilled unless the Lord willed it? Is it not the word of the Most High that good and evil befall? Of what shall a living man complain, each one of his own sins? God is who he is. He has not changed. If I find myself separated and apart from God, who is at fault for that? Yeah. Where should our complaints lie? Talked about that this morning. It is folly to make my own mistakes and then rage at God for those things. And it's even greater folly to separate myself from the only one who can really do anything about the pain that I feel. I've seen many people go through tragedy and loss, and there are almost always two main responses to it. It's to either blame God and reject him, or it's to lean on him for guidance and for grace. And my question usually is, why would you turn away from the only one who can do anything about the pain that you're feeling? Whether it's something you chose and you're experiencing a result of that, or it's something that has happened. Why rage against the only one who could ever do anything about it? Verse 39 prompts sort of a change of thought, a reflection on their own culpability in what has occurred. When he says, of what can we complain? Here's what we can complain about, what I have done, each one of his own sins. Then 40 through 51, he is the leading voice of his people's confession. Let us search, let us examine our own ways, let us turn back to the Lord. Let us lift up our hearts with our hands to God in heaven. We have transgressed and rebelled, and you have not forgiven. You have clothed yourself in anger and pursued us. You have slain without pity. You have screened yourself off with a cloud that no prayer may pass through. You have made us filth and refuse in the midst of all the people. All our enemies loudly rail against us. Panic and pitfall are our lot, death and destruction. My eyes shed streams of water over the ruin of my poor people. My eyes shall flow without cease, without respite, until the Lord looks down and beholds from heaven. As you listen to this confession, is there anything that stands out to you? Separation. We've heard a lot about this separation already. The poet is feeling the pain of the separation from God. What's the cause, the admitted cause of the separation? What? Their own acts, their own rebellion. Somebody say pretty much the same thing? Yeah. Yeah, they have recognized that they are the ones to have moved off course. God isn't the one who moved. They admit it. We messed up. 40 and 41. Let us examine our own ways. That in itself is an admission. If the separation between us and God exists, let's look at our own selves to figure out what has caused it. And once we figure out what caused it, there's something that we need to do about it, right? How do we turn back to the Lord? And verse 41 offers, how do they turn back to the Lord? There's this repentance. We lift up our heart with our hands. Does anybody have, what's your translation say there, verse 41? It's a very vivid image in the translation I'm using. Does anybody have a different, does it say pretty much the same thing? Oh, I'm using this Tanakh. It's the Hebrew Bible translation. Okay. So it separates. It says, let us lift up our hearts and our hands. I like this imagery. Let us lift up our hearts with our hands. What kind of image is that? What does that make? What do you visualize when you read that? Yeah, that is true remorse. It's this image of I'm bearing it all. I'm literally ripping out my heart to give it to God. Sometimes we are and I say we, I mean me. We all do this, but we're cheap grace is often a big part of our lives. You know, where what God has done for us, we just cheaply embrace. Dietrich Bonhoeffer coined that term, cheap grace. I just do whatever I want, and I offer some quick prayers of forgiveness, and I go on about my business. This is an image of something very different. It is heart-rending, and it's being literally offered up to God in sacrifice. So it isn't just, God, I'm sorry I did that. It is a true surrendering. God, I am giving you the very seat of my existence, my heart. I lift it up to you in heaven. I have admitted that I have transgressed and rebelled. What do you make of the last stanza of verse 42? Let us lift up, let us turn back. We have transgressed, we have rebelled, and you have not forgiven. What do you make of that last line? And you have not forgiven. What did they expect? You know, when we looked at Jeremiah, we examined chapter 7 pretty closely as a result of a lot of things they were doing. And one of the most horrific examples of the way that they have fallen from God was that they were sacrificing their own children on an altar to these false gods on their way to go offer their sacrifices to God, thinking that both could exist in their lives. He holds that up as this example of you are doing these things and expecting to come and receive, forgiveness in these sacrifices that you're offering. Previously, we just assumed that you would forgive based on our very shallow offerings that were right alongside what we were given to the world, what we were giving to these other false gods. There's an admittance here, right? We messed up, we made mistakes, and we were surprised when you didn't forgive. They haven't done anything up until this point to get forgiveness. But now this imagery is one in which we got to stop doing that, and we have to go back to our whole selves being lifted up to God. You've clothed yourself in anger. You've pursued us. You've slain without pity. You've screened yourself off with a cloud. We talk about images of Israel's history being now turned around, turned against them. What does verse 44 make you think about? You've clothed yourself in anger, pursued us. You've screened yourself off with a cloud. What did the cloud symbolize in Israel's history? In the wanderings in the wilderness in Exodus. The cloud was the symbol of God's presence among the people, his guiding voice in their life. And now, that is what is separating them, preventing them from being able to access and to make their prayers to God. So it's the absence of God. The result of their transgressions is the absence of God and the presence of their enemies. 46, 45, and 46. You have made us filth and refuse in the midst of all the people. Our enemies are loudly railing against us. God has been absent and the enemies have been present. 47 through 51, you really see the tears of the poet. Panic and pitfall are our lot, death and destruction. My eyes are shedding streams of water over the ruin of my poor people. My eyes shall flow without cease, never ending, until the Lord looks down and beholds us from heaven. You see his pain not just for himself and all he's experienced, but now for the plight of all the people. This last section is where the man begins to encourage the people to turn to the Lord. encourages his people's trust in the faithfulness of God, pleading with them, pleading with God to hear them once again. He returns to first person speaking. So let's read through this. We've got just 5 minutes left, Kenny? 10 minutes. Okay. Where am I? 51. My eyes have brought me grief over all the maidens of my city. My foes have snared me like a bird without any cause. They have ended my life in a pit and cast stones at me. Waters flowed over my head, and I said, I am lost. I have called on your name, O Lord, from the depths of the pit. Hear my plea. Do not shut your ear to my groan, to my cry. You have ever drawn nigh when I called you. You have said, do not fear. You championed my cause, O Lord. You have redeemed my life. You have seen, O Lord, the wrong done to me. O vindicate my right. You have seen all their malice, all their designs against me. You have heard, O Lord, their taunts, all their designs against me. The mouthings and pratings of my adversaries against me all day long. See how at their ease or at work I am the butt of their jibes. Give them, O Lord, their deserts according to their deeds. Give them anguish of heart, your curse be upon them. O pursue them in wrath and destroy them from under the heavens of the Lord. What is he doing with this last section, 52 through 56? What's that? Okay. Any type of what? Entitlement. Okay. So part of this is an indictment on the enemies and what he hopes to happen. Guess he hasn't read the Proverbs about praying for your enemies to stumble, but he's in pain. I think we could forgive him. Okay, what else? Yeah, Chuck. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Okay, Savannah? Yeah. 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 Yeah, as Mrs. Potts said, it's a tale as old as time. It's happened before, and it's happening now, and likely it'll happen again. And we often experience that in our own lives. But the important thought there too is that, and this was the promise of Jeremiah as well. The last half of Jeremiah was Babylon may have been allowed to come and act upon God's justice and what has happened, but they don't get to escape it either. They won't escape justice, which is really what the poet is crying out for at the end, that those who have perpetrated these acts also don't get away with what has happened. They don't get to get away with what they did. He's calling for God's justice to be felt, not to be escaped for them or for anybody else. There's also a mixing of past, present, and future here as well. Most laments, when they are trying to get God's attention, laments are about prayers crying to God about injustice, whether it's something that happened to them, whether it's they are experiencing it and it's gone on too long, or they just feel that way. Laments are about trying to grab God's attention and trying to plead and get God to act. And some of the ways that laments do that in the Psalms and what we're seeing here, there are reminders to self, like, okay, get it together. God has been faithful. He will be faithful again now, and he will be faithful in the future. But these laments get expressed at an effort for the lamenter to remind God, too. God, don't forget who you've promised to be. Don't forget what you have done for us in the past. And we're counting on you, once we fix ourselves, to do that for us now and again. Throughout this section, there's some past tense about, I have called on your name. It's happened before, so don't shut me out now. You have championed my cause and redeemed my life. You have seen wrongs done to me and vindicated my rights. You have seen enemies' malice and their designs against me. There's a mixing of what God has done, a reminder for himself and for God of times past when the faithfulness of God could be trusted, and a plea based on those rememberings for God to show his justice and his mercy now as well, future and always. We spend so much time with this because it makes such a good model for the way we deal with our own pain today. And I feel like I said everything I wanted to say on that subject this morning, a few minutes ago, but just as a reminder, for those of you who have already forgotten, like my son, I'm going to go ask him, hey, what was my sermon about? Something about God, and you talked about Proverbs. Cool, we've been doing that for the last 8 weeks. But as a reminder, in the midst of any sort of pain we experience, with an active will to recall times past when we have experienced pain. It doesn't make the pain we feel right now go away, but it does put it into perspective. It does allow us the ability to lay those things at the foot of the cross, to know what has been done for us, what continues to happen for us in an ongoing basis, to remind us to hold the line of faith, to feel the pain that we feel, but to not turn away from God as a result of it, and to rely on others. This poet is calling on his community to remember the faithfulness of God, to remember who they used to be and who they can be again should they decide to fix their transgressions. I love this imagery, to pull out their hearts, to lift them to God in full submission of the full self. I hope that this has been as helpful to you as it has been to me. We will finish up our look at Lamentations next week as we take the 30,000-foot view of chapter 4 and 5. Chapter 5 breaks the pattern, and we'll talk about that a little bit next week. It kind of limps to a close, so to speak. So come back next week, and we'll enjoy Father's Day together as we look at Lamentations.